All right, we are live. This is Chris Hyman from the Phoenix REIA. This is our weekly talk about real estate secrets. Today we are talking about SB 2747, I think it is, disclosing to the seller your intent to wholesale a property. We got Luke here, my co-host, and
yes,
we got Brian North. I picked Brian because some of you may not know this because he's just famous for being North & Co right now, but he was actually he started as a wholesaler, converted wholesaler / agent / broker / principal. Like he's done all the steps. So I thought he'd be a great add to our conversation today.
absolutely.
Because he understands both parts of all the deals. So
thanks, man. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, no problem. So Luke, why don't we start with you and Brian, because you guys spent most of your careers talking to sellers, whether from the agent side or the acquisition side,
right?
Whereas I just sell houses on the back end. So.
Oh, absolutely. Well, yeah, no, I mean, I know kind of what we're talking about today is obviously, just the new laws that might be coming into effect here. Chris, do you want to read that part off real quick, just so
sure.
knows what we're talking about?
Make sure the audience knows what we're talking about. It's SB 2747 that reads, and I'll put the link to this bill on the bottom. A wholesale buyer of residential real property shall disclose in writing to the seller that the buyer is a wholesale buyer. And then the teeth behind that says that the seller can cancel up to the day of close and keep your earnest money if you did not disclose. It also goes on and says, which I don't think this is that big a deal, that as a wholesaler like myself, I must inform the buyer that I don't own the property. I may just have equitable interest on the property and may not actually be able to perform on the contract, obviously, because if the seller doesn't sell, I, as the buyer, can't close and then resell.
Right.
So that's what we're talking about today.
So basically it sounds like, they're wanting us to be more transparent when we're kind of opening up escrow with the seller. So, I mean, from our perspective, that's something that we have, we've always kind of put something, in our contract stating that, the buyer reserves the right to, sell the property or buyers purchasing the property with the intent to make a profit. And I think that it all comes down to, it's all going to come down to obviously setting that tone with your seller ahead of time. Because, there's some people that come in and they don't say anything like that. So they'll just be like, hey, they just put it under contract real quick. They don't fill the seller in with anything that they're actually doing and whatnot. And so, we try to make it a point ahead of time to really be transparent with them. They might ask, hey, what's your plans with this property? What are you going to do with it? And what we always say is we're not really too sure yet. We've got a couple different exit strategies. Sometimes we will go ahead and resell the property. Sometimes we'll keep it as an investment. We'll keep it as a rental. And then we'll also say other times we do, buy a property with the intent of rehabbing it and possibly reselling it. We never say the word flip, of course, because that's just a negative connotation in this industry. But so, those are a couple of things that we say ahead of time. I don't think a whole lot's going to change just in the sense from the acquisition side. If you are setting that tone ahead of time. If you're not doing that, I think you're going to get yourself into trouble. But again, I think that's going to be the most important thing. Again, is just making sure that you are letting the seller know, that there is a potential that you might sell the property. So that's something that we've done from day one. But when it comes to on the dispo side, Chris, that's going to be more so your space. I don't know if you want to read further into the article there, but you can kind of let us know how that's going to affect the dispo side in your eyes.
Yeah, so I want to hear from Brian because, like I said, Brian's been on both sides of this. He's the agent side, the wholesale side, he started on the wholesale side. So Brian, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, look, anytime you see these regulations created, the concept or where it comes from is that they're trying to protect the consumer, right? That's the idea, is that they're trying to protect the consumer. The challenge for me is that most of the people that are writing these regulations or laws aren't out there dealing with the consumer every day. They're not the ones talking to them. So when they're hearing a story in the marketplace or something that's coming up, and then they're coming up with a blanket statement to try and address something, but it's clunky in its reality. In a way, when I read it, it reads discriminatory toward the wholesaler. It's basically saying, in a way, the way it reads is it's reading, hey, I want to let you know that I'm potentially bad and that I might not do something good. Like, that's kind of how they're reading. And it's like, and if I find out after I do some research about what wholesaler means, because what is a wholesaler, right? Like, wholesale in any right means that you're buying something or you're selling or you're offering something not in the retail space. But that's such a relative argument, because in today's market, people are paying retail for wholesale properties. I mean, in a lot of cases, I hate to say it, but it's true. So all of a sudden now we're using a blanket term called wholesaler, which then tells the consumer that you're buying it for a discount. I always say to people when they come to ask me on the retail side or wholesale side, hey, if you can find me anything that's a deal. And I'm like, well, what's a deal to you? Because what is a deal for the three of us on this screen are dramatically different from what other people might be. A deal for somebody might just be that they didn't have to compete on the open market right now. And so if I said I was, and by the way, do you know who the best person to provide that service to the consumer is? A wholesaler, right? So for me, there's unfortunately, like any industry, when I read this, Chris, thanks for sharing it with me, by the way, because I wasn't hip to it, surprisingly. I was a little disappointed in myself, frankly, that I wasn't on it. But when I read it, I was like, what a disservice to the consumer market at large, because there's a consumer need for the wholesaler. The retailer, in my regular everyday retail business, my retail brokers don't want to do what wholesalers do to find deals, right? Nor do many of them have the education or the moxie to be able to do it anyway, right? And I'm talking about an industry at large. So now, because unfortunately, like in any industry, you're going to create regulation because of the bad few, not the strong majority. Now all of a sudden there could be a disservice to consumer instead of a value. I see it as a major problem.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, being in the wholesale market for the last 20 years, I mean, we're really not getting the houses that go to retail. And I'm like Brian said, everything pretty much goes to retail right now. But we were really kind of focusing on whether it's the foreclosure, which is where I started, or the guy needs cash in 7 days, or it's down to studs, or he hasn't thrown a thing away in 20 years. I mean, that's kind of we've all seen it all. I mean, some agents wouldn't even want to walk through some of the houses I've been in. Like, as a matter of fact, I did a house in Florida, and the agent's like, "You're going in there?" I'm like, "Yeah, aren't you?"
Wholesalers have seen some things, that's for sure. We've all got some good stories.
But that's just it, guys. Is I'm back to, if we're talking about the consumer market, that's where the regulation is generally there to protect the consumer. You're talking, Chris, about homes that the average Joe doesn't even want to walk into, right? Yeah. The average person doesn't know how to underwrite that deal or understands why you're buying at wholesale. You're buying at wholesale because there's so much that needs to be done to the property that only somebody who has your background and your experience, the two of you guys are our experience in the market, to be able to walk a property and eyeball the general costs associated with what it's going to take to get that property in move-in ready condition and be able to make a quick decision for a consumer who needs the service. It's now going to over-regulate and stop that opportunity for a consumer who needs the exit on the acquisition side to be able to move through a deal without, by the way, and guess what? Guess what I see happening with this thing? So you're going to write this thing, and then here comes not good wholesaler investor, that's going to come backside and go, hey, did you get your disclosure? They're going to be like, no, I didn't get my disclosure. And now you're going to have guys competing with each other and killing deals over non-disclosure. And it's going to make more problems than exist already.
Yeah, so as wholesalers, we all don't appreciate the guy that calls up our seller and says, "Do you know they're wholesaling this, right?" Like, Like, we've all dealt with that. So now only do you have the people that are going to do that, that are going to then inform them about this new law that says, hey, did they fill out? And then obviously there's going to be plenty of people that just stick it in their contract and the consumer signs it. And how many consumers actually read the contract from start to finish, right?
No.
So then there's going to be the whole discrepancy over that. Like, I mean, obviously it'll be in a contract, so that's probably going to hold up, but there's going to be plenty of people that go behind, knock on the door and say, hey, do you know it's wholesaling, which they already do now, but now they're going to tell them about this other piece.
No, and I mean, to your guys' point, it happens every day, as we know. Like, we had a circumstance about, I don't know, maybe 10 days ago now, where we got a property under contract over here in Mesa. I got a call from, sorry, there's like a bird fight going on. I'm sure you guys are hearing this right now. It's kind of insane. There's like 5 birds that are just going at it. But anyway, so we got this house in Mesa, and I got a call from another wholesaler. Listen to this. Acting like this person that we just put their house under contract, he was acting like her son. So he's like, hey, I'm so-and-so's son. Just want to let you know, like, you didn't get my dad's signature on it. The seller told me that her husband had passed away. So he said, you didn't get my dad's signature. I'm not okay with this either. So my mom wants to cancel. So I was like, okay, first of all, she didn't tell me she had a son. Second of all, she told me that her husband was dead. He's like, no, it's not true. So anyway, I looked up the guy's phone number. He's a wholesaler here in Phoenix, and he literally acted as someone that he wasn't. So I called him back and I was like, dude, you're not this lady's son. Her husband is dead. She told me that her husband had passed away literally, the week before. And so, I mean, this is what people do, though. This is so, like, you have this example already of people. Brian, this is your example of one of those bad wholesalers. And so I got on the phone with his boss and I was like, that you have your guys on your team on the ground that are doing this, or making these phone calls, acting like people that they're not, trying to steal other people's deals. And so it's like, when you've got people doing this already, exactly what Brian said, you're going to have them bringing this stuff up. My gosh. You're gonna have them bringing this other stuff up and just going crazy with it, and it's unfortunate.
So, guys, what do you think I mean, if you have to come in, you're knocking on the door, you're the guy at the dinner table, like you guys have both been. What percentage of contracts do you think you lose saying I'm a wholesale buyer? Or obviously you're gonna spin it different, like, hey, I'm in the business to make money. I wholesale some deals, I keep some deals, I might keep this as a rental, I might wholesale this deal, but either way, I'm here to make money, and I'm here to help you with your property.
I mean, personally, I think it all comes down to training. It all comes down to how you're training your team. Because again, I think that if they're not mentioning it, or if they're wording it, wrong, or wording it where they're kind of coming off sleazy, then yeah, you're going to lose deals, and you should. But I mean, like, if you have your training down to where you're literally just stating, hey, we're not positive what we're going to do with the property yet. There's multiple things that we can do. We just don't know what we're going to do. But also, if you you have to kind of let them know, we are buying this. What we'll say a lot of times is we'll say, obviously we're not in business to lose money. Like, I just want to make sure you understand that, and 10 times out of 10, they're like, no, trust me, I definitely understand. I get that.
What do you think, Brian? You think?
Yeah, I think, look, to me, anything is all value is predicated on, or all dollars and time are exchanged predicated on value. And I think really it just comes down to the offering. I think there's probably going to be a little more professional of an offering than a gunslinger offering, if that makes sense, where you're going to sit down and you're going to go, hey, yes, I'm a wholesale. What does wholesale mean? Wholesale buyers are people that can help you exit a home that's in disrepair, help you exit a home when you have a time need, help you exit a home to save you from the bank stealing your house. I mean, hey, if they want to play a word game, I could play a word game too, right? So the bank's trying to take your house from you. The IRS is trying to, take your house from you. I'm here to make sure that you can get the most money for your property without having to deal with repairs, without having to deal with people coming through, without Brian's schlepping his buyers through at open houses, without having to list and market it, putting signs in the ground, taking photos, all of those kinds of things. And for that, the value of that is that I'm able to buy the property with cash quick, at a price that feels fair to me. Notice what I didn't say. Discount, deep discount, anything like that. So a price that feels fair to me and fair to you so that everybody can win. And I think if it's delivered in a really formatted, concise, and professional way to help them understand the new definition of a wholesaler relative different than what the definition is in our ecosystem and marketplace, then I think we can actually continue the consumer benefit versus it trying to be a detriment. I still don't think that the regulators understand the potential disservice they're creating in the marketplace, though. And my question back to you, Chris, would be, where do we have that conversation? Who do we need to talk to? What are the levers we need to pull?
Well, it may actually be too late. Obviously, you were late to the game finding out about it. I just recently found out that I went through the steps on the Track the Bill website. But this guy has already been through the House and been approved. They had a meeting on it yesterday in the Senate on the 11th. Today's the 12th, right? So I think yesterday on the 11th, and there sounds like they got it pushed back. But how I read it, it's basically, if it gets signed in the Senate, I mean, it's a consumer law, so the chance of it not being signed by the governor is probably pretty slim. He's not gonna say, no, I'm going to kick this one back because it protects the consumer, or what he views as protecting the consumer. Right. So it definitely looks like it's coming. It's not here today, so I'll put on the link where you can track the bill below, and but it's definitely there, and it's definitely and there's other states that have, like Chicago, or it's not Chicago, Illinois is a state, but they put wholesalers must be licensed. And that one's probably coming down the pipe sooner than later too. So I mean, I think Oklahoma City is there. So
yep, I heard that as
well.
So
the state of Oklahoma, I keep saying cities instead of states, but I mean, I think that one's coming next. But this is the first one to kind of really affect the industry.
Yeah, for sure.
Industry anyway.
And Chris, we were obviously talking right before we hopped on. We were talking about how it could also affect wholesalers just in the sense. How it could also affect wholesalers just in the sense of like, okay, if they do put anything into a law into place where, okay, they're going to make you actually close on it and you're not allowed to wholesale, you're not allowed to just sell to someone else who use their funds. I mean, that's going to make a big difference for someone like you who owns a lending company where, they're going to need you to actually sit back and close on it now.
Yeah. I mean, obviously if you didn't disclose that you're planning on wholesaling it, your only other option, if you like the deal, is to close. So obviously, yes, as a hard money lender, that probably helps me a little bit. Obviously helps some of the other lenders around, because the last thing you want to do is not have that in your contract. You like your deal, and then you send it to a dispo company that sends it all over the world, and then once one dispo company sends it, then everybody else in the city sends it, right? So
yeah, as soon
how
as
many
you get
times
one,
you get the same house 6
emails.
times? So
yeah.
Yeah, Chris, the other thing too, man, when I read through it, and it looks like that what you sent me is all that's what's described. I mean, it's very generic.
yeah.
And so it's like you
generic.
must disclose you're a wholesale buyer. So to me, it's like, well, it doesn't even define what a wholesale buyer is. Like, it's like I have to self-title myself. Did you see that in there, Chris?
Yeah, it's on. I think it's on page 2. It says a wholesale buyer that is a wholesale buyer is listed as somebody that is selling a house with equitable interest. So he actually doesn't own it. He's just using the equitable interest, and that's a statement I've used forever. It's like, I'm advertising the house on my website because I have equitable interest in that.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, but my thing though is, what about for me when I'm out finding deals all the time. We all are, right? We're deal guys. And I find a deal that today I like that I'm going to close. I'm going to take down and I'm going to make it a long-term rental, right? And I get to within 4 days of close of escrow, and I decide, you know what? I found a better deal that I like, and I don't have enough capital to be able to close on both deals, and now I'm going to wholesale this one. Yeah. What happens then? Did I not disclose? And now what?
Yeah, no, and I had this conversation with Luke a minute ago, because all of us that have done some fix and flipping, cash flow is a big part of fix and flipping. You might have this one ready to sell, buyer backs out, now you're back on the market. You had this other one that you were going to replace it with, and now maybe you just don't have enough cash. So, I'll just sell it because, it's a good deal. I might as well just, monetize my lead that I had.
Right.
And now all of a sudden you have to close on them. So
it feels to me like this just created job security for regulators. You know what I mean? Because it's like at the end of the day, it's not going to work up front. And someone's going to have a really good attorney. One of us is going to have a really good attorney that's going to say, no, I had no intent to wholesale the property. That was never my intent. And I can show in a chain of paperwork that my intent was to buy the property all along. And it's going to be ambiguous. And the guy who wrote the bill or whoever's defending it is going to lose. And they're going to have to go back to the drawing board and either define it or get the thing thrown out. But it's just, there's so much ambiguity in the whole thing that I think at the end of the day, for your listeners, I think the main thing is regulation will continue to come. So instead of bitching about it, what do we do to create solutions? From a solution perspective, it's really just, it's going to be wordsmithing what a wholesaler is, so that when you're presenting yourself in the marketplace, it's palatable for the consumer and it's palatable for the end buyer. And at the end of the day, that you're able to still provide a consumer service that's really valuable in the marketplace. It's a necessary component of the real estate ecosystem.
You definitely have to have the buyers that'll take some of the houses I walk through. That's for sure. So yeah, that's basically kind of what we're talking about today. Is the
heck yeah,
is the wholesaler, and like I said, this is passed through the House. It's sitting at the Senate. I mean, I think it squeaks through for sure, and then I don't know the time frame to become law. It's some amount of time. It could be 90 days. It could be 180 days. If you know, you can comment below. I might look it up later this afternoon just so I know for future conversation. But yeah, it looks like this is probably coming, and we'll see what happens. Obviously, like Luke said, like Brian, the conversation with the seller. If you're a great closer like these two are, you're gonna present it right. I'm not one of those great closers. I'm just the guy that sells.
Get out of here.
You know what else? I was just thinking too is, what is to dig into the law and identify what lever could you pull in contractual language to eliminate the close up till close of escrow. Right. Like there's something in there that you could find, that we could find, to legally bind the seller. I don't know what it is, but I think there's another part of it. I think really the big concern, because as I'm thinking through it here and listening to you guys, I'm like, look, something really important for your viewers to hear, or your listeners to hear, is that things like this come up because of the bad guys and gals in business, not because of the good guys and gals. So, it will clean up the industry, right? Regulation cleans up the industry. So there is a good side to it in a way. But so then you're like, all right, great. But I mean, if my business is predicated on going out and tying up deals and sellers can cancel whenever they want and get their earnest deposit back, well, and be able to return earnest, that's a problem, right? And so where can we find the lever in the law to identify where at least you can bind the consumer to remedy, right? Because it can't just be, it's like, well, on one hand, you're trying to square things up. You're creating more of a Wild Wild West effect, right? Where it's just gunslinging. And so I think there's an opportunity to find a lever there as well.
Well, like everything, it's gonna, as things process through, someone's gonna figure out a trick, right, or a backdoor or whatever it is, and then everybody will latch onto it, and go that route.
No, exactly.
Yeah, I'll be waiting for that call, Chris. That's all I want. Once you figure it out, just give me let me know, right? I know you will. And I don't mean, I think backdoor's too loose. I think it's just like, hey, there's got to be a, if at the end of the game it's a chess game, there's got to be a counter move to every move. And it's for the good guys, and gals out there who are doing good business. They shouldn't have to run the risk of their business because they're doing things right. So we'll play with the regulators, but let's find a way to support each other who are doing it right.
No, for sure. And I think it's just, honestly, I think it's just part of the evolution of our industry. You know what I mean? Like, obviously certain things come into place, and you have to, it's like a chess game. You got to make moves, and you got to, move the right pieces. And usually the good guys do make the right moves to be able to stay ahead of the curve. So,
well, as a changing market, we've seen all the different shifts. At least I've seen all the different shifts from 2000 to 2021. Obviously, you need to be able to pivot, and it's a good time to be ready to pivot anytime soon.
Yeah.
With interest rates, approaching over 5 for sure, and then and headed upwards. So might be a good time to be nimble.
Yeah. We're definitely slowing down on our.
I think I had one of these conversations at coffee with you about 15 years ago, Chris. So I heard you loud and clear. You seem to be right the last time, so I'm gonna believe you this time.
Yeah. So.
Well, thanks for having me, dude.
I appreciate both your time. Hopefully this gave, if you didn't know about it, like I said, it's not past, it's just out there. I think it's coming. But you had to figure out these two guys that have spent their life on the kitchen table with sellers. So, they got the best ideas to move forward.
Heck yeah. I like it.
Awesome. Thanks, my man. Good to see you, Luke.
Yeah. Guys, I'm going to get out of this estuary that I'm in here.
Tell the birds we said hi.
Oh, my God. I don't know what's going on. This is insane.
Later, boys.
All right,
I appreciate
see ya.
it.